Namaste and good evening. It's my pleasure to invite you to the 99th Social Science Baha lecture series. And the topic of the lecture today is disasters, development, and building codes. Sorry, I just realized I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Vandita Sijapati and I'm a member of Social Science Baha. And so I've already told you about the title of the lecture today. And our speaker today is Dr. Bishnu Pandey. So he teaches at the British Columbia Institute of Technology in Vancouver, Canada. He's been involved in seismic assessment, design, and retrofitting works in Asia and North America since 2000, so that's a long history there. In 2002 to 2004, he served as a technical team leader of earthquake safety projects, which included seismic mitigation of schools, hospitals, and building code implementation in Nepal at the National Society for Earthquake Technology. And he's, of course, an engineer by training. And he has worked with the United Nations managing projects on seismic breeding of schools, housing safety, and code implementation targeting Asia-Pacific countries. He has worked at the University of British Columbia on developing performance-based standard for seismic retrofitting in British Columbia. He has also served as a seismic consultant to a number of international organizations, including the World Bank, Save the Children, and various other UN agencies. In the aftermath of the 2015 earthquake, he led an engineering team from Canada that worked on reconnaissance survey, followed by research on the earthquake and reconstruction work. So last week, we actually had the annual conference that is organized by Social Science Baha, where Dr. Pandey had delivered a lecture as well. And what I can assure you today is that this is going to be very interesting, and I hope you enjoy his lecture. So without any further ado.
Thank you. Thank you, Vandita. Thank you. Namaskar. Today, I think this is the really first time I'm speaking with intellectuals in the audience. There are highly intellectual, but not really in engineering field. And I am here as a structural engineer, this talk will include my experiences starting from my early career that started with Yenset when I was just a fresh graduate and walking into door to answers here, there, and just with the novice and first with ambitions and lots of things, but no knowledge on earthquake engineering at all. That's what I was at the beginning, and I started earthquake engineering there, and I accepted the challenge, but then I had no knowledge. So that means I had to rush to the guru. That time Amazon sent me to India to take a basic knowledge to start with. And that's where my earthquake engineering career started. And then I studied in Japan and worked there. And definitely in Nepal I was involved there. And throughout this process, what I learned, one very important lesson, that is definitely we engineers, the structural engineers, earthquake engineers, we are proud of what we do, and that is what we need to continue. But then the solution of earthquake problem, that is saving lives and property, cannot be just solved by just our engineering narrow field there. And there's a lot of vistas there where we have interfaces and contacts. And that's where, that is still just one instant, but along my whole career from 2000 all the way here, it's already 18 years. That's what I'm trying to reflect here. I have not put any questions here, but still my phone will be obviously, structural engineering, bear with me on that, because I teach seismic design in my university. I practice structural engineering, but then sometimes it's a bit nervous. I become when I need to talk with non-engineering communication. And that problem itself also I want to discuss with you, why we are so nervous and why we don't know how to communicate with people that really need to have interface and dialogue. Without you, I want to start with this quotation, which I like most, because here it says natural disaster will hit us by the time people have forgotten about it. It's a very simple one, but it has for me, it has two very important messages there. That is, it talks about the natural disasters themselves. They are infrequent, so they are not regular occurrences, so that's obvious. But then, more important message there is, if we don't forget, that event will not be disaster. So that means just keeping in mind that what is the last disaster that keeps us safe. Meaning, it has a deeper meaning that if we don't forget, we definitely will be prepared for that. That is the inherent message there. That's well early, in 19th century, and it is still very prevalent. The Japanese scientist there, and I want to say just this statement was so vivid there in a city in Japan, Kobe, where I worked for 5 years there, was hit by earthquake and many people killed, more than 6,000 people killed. And one of the reasons why people in Kobe suffer that one is basically the fundamental root is that they forgot the last one. And that was reflected in their testimonial after the earthquake, that they think that the rest of the country is so earthquake vulnerable, but not Kobe, because that was really 500 years ago. And that is the thing that they see the safest place. And there are so many incremental vulnerability conditions that they created because of this lack of knowledge and lack of motivations and lack of that awareness. So that's where I want to start here. Let's not forget the last 2015 earthquake. That hit us very badly. This graph, I think I promise this is the only graph. I think it's a bit scary. Lots of scientific graphs and other things, but this is the, I think, only one. Why I put this one is yes, we play always with these kind of things, but then we can't communicate these things with general public. That's where we have a problem, right? But then more than that, this picture, the illustration here shows multiple things there. The first question comes, was that the 2015 earthquake a very big one? That was very devastating one for us. But is really, from scientific point of view, is that a big one? If you ask me, right point blank question, I would say no. That was a small earthquake or moderate earthquake. I would say just a moderate earthquake. How we can say that is that there you can see the very second one there in the left. It's the very first one is the acceleration we call that is the force generating power in earthquake when they shake. But then that is very small. That is just a 15% of gravity. That is what we say, which is actually really small earthquake that can generate that one. And that is the one which generates force and to destroy the buildings. But then that was not that big. But what is big, and it's scary, yeah? You feel it. I was not here that time, but you feel it, and it was really shaky. Why is that? It's the very last one there. You can see the displacement. It's called displacement. That is really high compared to other earthquake. It is really high. That is almost 1 meter from the center point you go. It's almost 1 meter, and that random circle, the graph there. What does that signify is if anything was there in the floor that can move with earthquake, and that will trace like that. That is how in two plane the tracing point would be. That means from the center point you can go almost 100 centimeter down, 1 meter. It can go 1 meter that way and then go back another 1 meter that way. That was really scary, and that is unique. So that becomes very scary for us, for a human, but that does not really create force to the buildings and to damage the buildings. But still, we have lots of damage, right? lots of damage. And it's already magnitude 7.8 magnitude, which means it goes to the higher side. What happens is that I was just a small anecdote from my side. When I was in Vancouver that time, and my cousin called me from here all the way there, just to tell me that, oh Vishnu, you told me that my house was really, really bad. That is what I told him, that you constructed very badly and it can't withstand, and his building was completely on his scarf. Nothing happened. So he called me just to tell, okay, you are wrong. You are wrong, Vishnu. You know, the building was safe. Then that is not just my cousin's feeling, it's a notion, the whole community, that we want to just forget about what is the real earthquake risk for the next in the future, and we are safe because it's 7.8 magnitude. We are okay. That means my house is okay. No, as an engineer, I would say no. As a learner from this is all psychology field, I'm not expert on that, but at least what I can say, that characteristic is very particular characteristic, and that does not reflect what would come in the future, right? But then why still that small earthquake, that's 15% of G, that would create just if it exceeds 10% of G, then it starts cracking and damaging mud building or stone buildings. But then to have a significant crack, we need at least 30% of G for a concrete building. But our concrete buildings gone, right? So many concrete buildings and most of the buildings damaged. Why? That's the question I want to raise. You can see here, there's lots of damage there, but then you can see our village that is from Dolaka. I took that picture in the village side. It's flattened. It's flattened, that one. Other one is in Rasua. Our rural and the urban centers are gone, and even Kathmandu. All these concrete buildings, they are flattened. And why? It's so much of vulnerability because it should not be supposed to have any damage in concrete building. And even other buildings, it should not have that, right? So let's go back to untangle that one, or to deconstruct where is that vulnerability coming, and obviously to deconstruct that one, and it's not just engineering point of view. I cannot do that. I have to rely on social science. And that's where I tried here to get this press release model that you say to come up with the progression of vulnerability, where it meets the hazard. And the vulnerability at the one, that's where it just put a setting for a hazard to turn into disaster, right? And it has a underlying causes, it's a very root causes, and then it generates the next stage. It creates a dynamic pressure in the society, in the communities, and then that would ultimately result into unsafe conditions. And what are these ones? Yes, obviously we know, but that is what we go beyond the engineering, and that's where we start. It's a poverty, obviously poverty, but then limited. That also goes to the rural, particularly in rural area. It fits well, this model fits well in rural Nepal, where its villages are all flattened, right? And that's where limited access to resources to the rural population. There was political instability and poor governance. All this community, what they result into is a lack of institution to enforce building code. If there is political instability, no governance, that's where building code was just there in the self. Yensen was trying hard, but then it's just from the non-state actor. How much you can do that one, right? It's education skills for safe conditions, it's not there. So awareness of policymakers and public, both, is not there. So these are all related to the underlying causes there. And then in macro forces, the macro level, what are there is population migration. I would say that that was a big factor itself. That it's a very vivid example of that one is right after the earthquake, we see in Baha there are pockets of damages, and everybody of that time, I still remember when phone was there from journalist to engineer. Oh, what happened? Is there something there in biology? And say, oh, maybe because of the underlying soil. So that was the easiest answer, but then it's not. We try to go deep into the root cause there, it's not. It's all related to the migration work. That is those areas, the biology area where the people, rural, the labor came into there and they want to stay in those hotels or lodges, and then because of that business, they just boomed up. They started with a 2-story building, and they all the way they go up to the 60-story without having anything, and just a story construction, and that resulted into all of a sudden that very brittle failure. We say brittle failure. What happens is that our whole construction system is brittle. That means up to a certain point it does not show any sign whether it has any stress or anything. But then all of a sudden, if that's just a tip off, then it just gone out. So that's called brittle failure. That's our construction system, and that's why some buildings just gone out of it. And then sometimes next to that one we don't see anything. But that is all related to migration. If we go to the closer look of what is the root cause, right? So and then it has our urban expansion and corruption. So that all created to unsafe conditions that are physical, that are other, like in knowledge, in construction itself, and building code enforcement, all those things. That will meet with the triggering event, that is the shaking. Because if those are not there, if the shaking will not be doing anything. Because that's what we say. Earthquake do not kill people, right? Because that is what they have to meet. They have to meet with those vulnerability. That's where it comes to disaster, and that's why we must salute it, right? That's a framework that we can see, and why we are so vulnerable. I want to go back a little bit and now just again do this deconstruct what is a disaster then. If we want to look there, it's a serious disruption of functioning of community or society, causing so many losses, and that exceeds the ability of affected community and society to cope with their own issues. So that's a UNISDR formal disaster definition. And inside it, if we look at it closely there, we can see that there is it's a function of the risk. It has to come from the combination of hazard and vulnerability, and trigger and accelerated with insufficient capacity. That is where it manifests to hazard, manifests to disaster, right? But then, if that is so, it is not just an engineering problem. It's not an engineering problem anymore. It is, engineers will be in forefront, but it is not just engineering, and it's not absolute. How we do calculations and always come up with the numbers, it's not absolute. So it's relative and it's a social. The problem is relative and it's a social. That is developed where how relative it is that the developed and underdeveloped society have very different assets, exposure, and combination of risk factors. That's why it's relative. The case we can see from our own case or Japanese disaster in Sendai 2011 compared to Haiti earthquake there. It's in all respects, it's very different. The economic loss of Japan was really high, almost 300 billion, more than that, with direct loss, which is just 6.5 billion in Haiti. But then the impact of that, whether it's a real disaster to the economy, Japanese is not a disaster at all, because in 2 years down the time from the disaster, the Nikkei index was up there 30% up. So it does not really create impact. Then in Haiti, it was that 6.5 billion was exceeding the GDP, and it's still under that billion, and really in despair and economically. So it has a relative issue, right? That's where the developed and underdeveloped society has disaster risk differently. And the other really social aspect is the risk itself, risk tolerance itself is a social value. So that is how much risk we can take and we accept. And that ultimately I will talk in the later part of the building code, that is reflected in building code, is relative. So the level of safety or level of risk, if we go there, that is different for for where I work in Canada, it's different from there to here, right? And it is not only for earthquake, for many things. We can say that we go with just when twin, right? With the rope, and we cross the river, and that is a really high risk. But then people do that. So that is they accept that risk. So same thing with the cost of investment. Actually, when we put some mitigation measures, there's always cost associated with that cost. Sometimes we tend to accept more risk compared to other countries. So that's why it's a social, and that's where we have to decide what is our acceptable level of risk. And that's a social problem, and that's a community decides that, right? And so the history of risk is a social science. That's where it's my learning. That's related to, that's all for all kind of disaster. But then when it comes to more pointed to seismic risk, what is seismic risk in earthquake? That's a probability of losses due to earthquake within lifetime of the structure. Now there is another parameter, lifetime of the structure. Those losses can include human lives, social and economic disruption, as well as material damage. And for that, there are other parameters coming into picture. That's the exposure. That there is earthquake, but then if there is no exposure, that means if there are no people, no buildings, no asset, nothing happens, right? So it depends on the exposure, and those exposed elements should have a vulnerability. If no vulnerable, there is exposure, but we are not vulnerable, community is not vulnerable, buildings are not vulnerable, it's still okay, and it depends on location. Where earthquake, if a really big earthquake happens in Indian Ocean, still we are okay, right? But if it happens, small earthquake in Kirtipur, high magnitude, we will be gone, right? So that is also location is now another parameter. So in what is earthquake engineering then? I'm just building up now there. It's an application of civil engineering when it comes to engineering now to reduce the life and economic loss due to earthquake. And that part, there are many aspects of earthquake risk management that we engineering is just mitigate the seismic risk. That's where we focus. And I don't want to go much in the impact of earthquake that we all know. One is death of injuries, and another is damage to built and natural environment. Mostly damage environment, natural environment can do much, and it's limited with the landslides and all other things. But then the number of issues after that one, the consequence of that one comes to the casualty, trauma, loss of employment, loss of heritage, material damage, business interruption, consumption of material and energy, which are sustaining element for us, and that we overconsume that one for the energy and for other things, and macroeconomic impacts. Those are the really outside the realm of engineering now. They go beyond that one. It's economic, it's other things, it's social, it's political. And overall, the impact is on human security and development. That's where it comes. It's human security and development. And that was very nicely put by Marcus and their economists there. What they say there in terms of disaster risk and human security, at the center of the sustainable development is the delicate balance between human security and environment. Critical to this is need to explicitly plan for improved environmental management, sustainable development to disaster prevention and preparedness. That disaster preparedness, prevention are the essential qualities for sustainable development and human security. So it is an issue of human security. It's an issue of human security, right? So when we join that, have an interface between the earthquake risk and development, that's where it comes now. We can say that development investments are not sustained if the earthquake losses are limited, right? That's where they actually, whether our development is in the real sense of development, that is sustainable. The exam is earthquake. It's big exam, and they are periodic exam. So if they fail, obviously they're gone. Our hard-earned money, we invested that one, and it's gone. So it's not sustainable. And if you pass, that's a big exam. So that is where the sustainable development comes into picture with earthquake risk management. But then, if we do unthinkable development, that's where it's not just a fail, but it accelerates our all poverty and all this exploitation and vulnerability and everything. Right? And it's not only that, I received this slide from our colleague, our collaborator, Carlos Piacis, presented this in last R2R conference this last month. He presented this case from Nicaragua that what happened there with the impact of disaster in their economic growth. Every time, the country trying to stand up, go back to the development, and then another disaster hits, and then they go back again. They try to come back with all the systems, and they never really come back to what they were in early 70s, and starting from 1978 earthquake. They continuously hit by earthquake and other conflict also, and so their development is throughout the time we can see never come back. So in particularly that is important and very huge issue for marginalized economies like us. We have just enough to come to build bridges, right? And with Harran, ADB, World Bank, debt and everything, and then that's wiped off by law. And what happens? Nothing, right? So we need to wait for decades, and then again another disaster comes and then we wipe off. And that is only if our development are not in consideration with the earthquake risk. Because if they are not sustainable. But then sometimes these disasters are also opportunities. They are sometimes pre-attuned. Sometimes they, sometimes like I would say in Japan, I read many reports in Japan. They have time and again. They have a report with the scenario earthquake. 40,000 people will be killed. This many houses will be done by next big earthquake in Tokyo. How come? They should be done, by this, because of the development and everything. But there are so many legal and other constraints that they cannot just eliminate the risk. And basically, it's politically incorrect. But then they are waiting the disaster to wipe some of the areas they never can solve, and to create an opportunity to build better. Right? But then nowadays it's not. We don't want, but still we can see now. You can go to New York, you can go to Zolaka, you can see a beautiful all villages with the bands and everything, beautiful houses. That the opportunity we got from disaster. Right? In the expensive, obviously, we pay high price, but then it created opportunity. So, and then it's the same thing other side that sometimes obviously the good network of infrastructure with the sustain with the earthquake consideration always gives a better life, and that is always the first quarter of the graph there. But then some are in the negative side, right? So that is where they have interface. And so if it is unsustainable, that's where the cycle of the disaster development, poverty cycle, and particularly if we have the development planned properly, with the consideration of the disaster, and we can all cancel out those vicious circles, right? But then in this case, the poverty, in the instant of the earthquake itself, that is the definition of the poverty here. It's mentioned there, the state of hopelessness, helplessness, humiliation, lack of choices, and marginalized and isolation. That is very relevant when really earthquake hits there, because for the survivor, because it is hard to imagine helpless poverty. Those experience the sight of their loved ones being buried, alive under the rubble of collapsed buildings, and they are helpless. That is also poverty. That is instant poverty, and also long-term poverty it will create. Right? And here, even human dignity is in question. It's the photographs from Pakistan. They are begging for the relief material and dropped from the helicopter. Nobody wants that, right? Then that is all the interlink between disaster and development. Now coming back to engineering, earthquake risk management, engineering knowledge, and building codes. We have some problems with earthquake because it has really nasty characteristics. And those characteristics, I would say, I'll go a little bit quickly here. They occur suddenly, and without warning, with the potential to cause huge loss of lives and destruction in a very short space of time. That is all, it's very complicated. And the time interval was huge, so it's sometimes a generational gap. So the information is not passed from one generation to another generation. And when it hits, most likely we will be killed. If not, maybe we will be injured. And if we are all fine, but rest of things from around us will be all wiped off. All infrastructure gone, everything. In fact, it's a really, really scary situation, right? So that means it's really hard to manage. And that, in that sense, the engineering solution we always say, okay, proper land use, retrofit of existing building, and up-to-date building code and their effective implementation. That's an engineering side. That's easier to say. But then the non-technical issues are the one hard. That includes training of those engineers themselves. How do we train those engineers? And how do we get that training of earthquake engineering? And whether we have really research that we need for our own society, our own community. And another one is the dissemination and effective use of knowledge. That's another very important aspect that the earthquake, if a couple of people have earthquake engineering knowledge and then they just hold it, and for the sake of, like sometimes they mystify the things that, oh, earthquake engineering is so special that nobody knows except me. That is the sense there, right? And there is really a professional competence and dissemination is lacking there. How to handle that? And obviously awareness of public and as well as the state itself. So those are the factors really associated with engineering, but not really engineering itself. Those are hard part to handle. And it has a little bit, big picture here. Who are the actors, even just for decision making for the earthquake solution? There are engineers everywhere there, but then there are social scientists too, political players, insurers, all the sectors of the society to decide what kind of solution we want. That is the standard template, basically for all stakeholder engagement. That's why we need this interface. Right? I will not go in detail. I will put this slide into the archive so you can see there. But then that's where really I learned that it's not just we engineer, a bunch of engineers talking something and in the formula basis. No. And when it comes to our case, particularly in a police case, there comes the technology application strategy, how it should go. In other countries, okay, just there is knowledge and you apply there. It's really fast and quick, but not in our case. No, we have to absorb and adapt. Not just adapt, but we have to modify that. And that big chunk of knowledge, we have to adapt in our case because the solution really is very different. Some part we can do, and then some we need to research. Otherwise, just there is an earthquake engineering. I'm graduated from there, Tokyo University. There, I cannot do it here. Right? There lies another problem, and that is because the technology itself should be feasible. Obviously, engineers will handle that one, but it has to be economically affordable to people, culturally acceptable, locally available, and sustainable. It has to be, right? And just for one case that I put this slide also in the other lecture here. That case that it's a very vivid there from Indonesia, Aceh there, right after the earthquake in China, I was there. And one year later, I went there, and there are hundreds, actually thousands of row houses there built for earthquake victims, and people did not go there. Did not go to, and vacancy, 90% vacancy there. Nobody goes there. Just besides that, those row houses, there is a hut, and then people build by themselves. It's all cultural. It's a big problem. It's a cultural problem that Indonesian people, they want their small garden and separate fence. That's it. And it's not there, so they don't want it. And billions of dollars invested there for nothing. Right? So that's a cultural issue. And in our case, we can see that those are some are reflected in our case also that we discussed a lot in last conference also. One room house for big family. Yes. and how that fits. Yes, from engineering side it's all fine because that's a box, nice, and earthquake it will be all fine, but then that's a really do people want? No. And there will be, that's why we say that, oh, that is a state house, that's a sarkari ghar, and then they will build their own house without constraints. Right? And here is a case that, and it's just in Kagesuri Manhara, I got this Yenset story there. She had three-story house with barbali and veranda and everything, all kitchen separate and bedrooms, everything that she can invite her son-in-law and all other relatives to stay there. Now she has only one room. And what she says that this is just a house, not my home, and my soul is not there. That's tough, right? That's tough, and that's beyond engineering. That's what I'm saying. It's beyond engineering. We engineer, and so it's all okay. Safety check. Checklist, all everything fine, but not for people. It's not. And here is another big impact. Is from Dhading, it's a Pokhari Hatia village. There, the technology has to fight with the constraints, local constraints. There, after the earthquake, there is no water resources there, and they have to carry water from another village, and just to carry one batch of water, they have to pay 5,000 rupees. So to build one room or two room buildings, they have to pay extra 50,000, 60,000 rupees. And then government is pressing hard. Okay, you have to do a DPC, finished by 2000, so it Masanta, otherwise we will not give. So what they did through this, few buckets of water, they just mix and then prepare a DPC. Quality of construction, gone. So there is a compromise now in technology because of the constraints there. And again, the engineering, the technology that we have now compromised with that, the situation there. And now this case is there that we say that okay, and in upper Dhading and in Nuwakot also they have this softwood, and what engineers suggest that okay, if it is a softwood, there is no other option but then just to paint with the black paint, Japanese black paint, so that it will be seasoned and then proper use everything. You use that. But then people, what they did, okay, to get the certificate, everything, they just put the plank first and then put a black paint afterward, and then in the underside of that wood plank there is nothing. So that's where the termite comes and everything comes, so water absorption and everything. So that wood will go in 3-4 years, it will be gone, vanished. But then people just trying to deceive us so that they think that they may deceive earthquake too. No, they cannot deceive. So it's a problem of the owning the earthquake new knowledge. That's a new knowledge, and then they still have not owned it. If the ownership of that knowledge is with them, they would not have done that, right? And this is in overall, what is the situation there? We discussed this one also last time. Pre-earthquake situation, owner-built system we build our own houses. Yes, there is a planning and design phase and construction. There is no supervision, of course, there in rural area. But everywhere there is owner or masons. That's where all the role is, and there is no technicality, no engineering, obviously that we don't want. But then, after the earthquake, with the fast track, we want to have the large number of second trends, pass out, third trends, pass out, everything we want number. And what happened is that we fast track that one, and then now everything is just a state. There's no owner. Just limited, very limited. That red color just vanished from everywhere. But still we claim that it's owner built. It's really owner built? No. We have 17 templates, and then to get this 3 lakh amount, we have to adopt one of them, and that's exactly, if it is 4.5 meter, we have to do a 4.5. That's it, right? Is there the really ownership? No. Maybe the biggest flaw was there that before developing those templates, did we really go to the village and ask them what kind of building configuration you want? Did we do that? That's the question. If it was there, then obviously alternative scenario with the owners active would be in planning, at least in design and construction, there will be there will be owner's engagement. No, we did not have that. In planning and design, everything is just by template, right? But then these are all also related to the constants of earthquake delivery, the message delivery. We have problem that one. Again, going with the peculiarities of earthquake, we have so many problems. How to communicate the nature of earthquake. There's still the impression that the cost of making earthquake resistant house is expensive. That is what the general public is still having that feeling, the notion, and it's a sophisticated and partly blame to us engineers that we think that it's very earthquake, and we don't want to share all those. We don't want to be transparent, right? And that's where the problem is. And sometimes social champion and leaders have no better information, but then they pretend. So, and that's where sometimes problem manifests, right? And but then the earthquake safety before the earthquake was not a political agenda. If after the earthquake, yes, but then immediately evaporates, right? That is the constraints in earthquake awareness. And we engineers and non-engineers, we have problem with each other, right? That's engineer, we studied how to design, but we did not study how to communicate our design to people. And people, they scared to ask engineers, oh, he's engineer, that's very sophisticated, and they never ask. That's what the problem is. And this is again, gap in understanding. Sometimes we think always with our engineering mind, that scientific engineering, we always talk about the probabilistic things, okay, 2% in 50 years, 10% in 50 years, like that. But then for people it's yes or no, earthquake comes or no, it doesn't come. That is how they think, black and white, right? And we say acceptable risk. Oh, what is acceptable risk? It's a safety is the point. That is what they, but we always talk, we engineers, we always want to be accurate, right? So all these things, we derive some programs based on population average. No, people, individual, they always personalize things. No, population average doesn't work for them. And for us, death is death, but for people, for common people, including myself, when I'm not just a person, how I die, that matters, right? But then, just for us, death is death, that's it, right? So those are the engineering side, perception, and that's the intuitive public. So we have that mismatch. And I will wrap quickly there, and I don't have much time to go to building code. But then, what we don't know also, when we communicate message, there is a ladder of communication, hierarchy. That is continuum of the SAD has a very nice paper, 99 published in 99, how the earthquake communication should go, step by step, starting from earthquake, what is it? Then next comes to the what damage it do, and whether that damage will to my office or not. So everything is personalized there. It goes in that hierarchy. If we miss one or two, this gets out. Everything. We can't provide any information to them, useful information to them. But we just ignore that thinking ladder for our good communications. And just to wrap up there, the building code enforcement, we say, is that a basic solution? Is that really a magic solution? It's not. The particular enforcement is not a magic solution. There is an issue whether it should be simple or accurate. There should be flexible or very rigid, strict on ambiguous, right? And whether it should be really controlled or engaging stakeholders themselves and ownership of that knowledge, or just compliance. If it's compliant, that's it. So there should be a balance between them, right? There should be a balance between them. And by the way, the building codes are, developed by engineers, but it should be all by stakeholders. But then, final goal of the building codes are prevention of life, that is human security, and protecting the building and infrastructure asset. That means making our development sustainable. So we go in that direction. Rest I will just post in the archive. You can see there. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Bishnu. When I was listening to you, I was just reminded of the research that you did a few years back on flood mitigation strategies and how people and communities are addressing the risks of flood. A little bit different from earthquake, but we did this research in Koshi Basin, and one of the very striking things for me and for everybody else was we looked at the strategies that people use during the flood event, in the aftermath of the flood event, and between two floods, meaning that would give them time to sort of anticipate for or develop the resilience against the next flood events. And what was very striking was the strategies used in all these three episodes were the same. And so we asked people why they had not tried to do something in order to prepare for the next flood event. And they were saying that there had been lots of awareness campaigns, etc. People had been informed about what happens, what they should do, why it happens, all that. But that the information never became knowledge for people's own consumption. So I think what you said here is very important for us to think about. So with that said, I would like to open the floor for questions. Let's keep our questions and comments short so that we can get everybody's views, questions. There's somebody going around with the mic, so if you want to ask any question.
Hello, I'm Deepak Thakur from Citizens Bar. That was a question that the comment that you made anticipated my question. It's related to that. So building on that, so how can we make this information knowledge? I mean, like NSET has been holding these earthquake days for what, 25 years now, at least since 1999, 2000. And while it used to happen in Kathmandu only, now it is being taken to other parts of Nepal as well, and that was before the earthquake. So what is the blockage that happens in people's awareness, that knowing fully well that the earthquake is coming, and yet they do not take any precautionary methods, measures before the earthquake, and since the earthquake also, people still don't do that, and they would prefer compliance for the sake of it. So, you've had experience in different parts of the world. What goes on? Is it simple economics, that people don't have money? What is it? Your experiences?
Hard question. That's what all this about. But then, what I would say, it's hard questions, and but then only there's a students in that the ownership of that information, or ownership of the knowledge. I think that's the key. Where if it is a developed society where there is a very nice work division, everybody does their job with accountability and everything. Okay, engineers will come and then fix my buildings and everything, and so they don't need to know everything. But then in our case, it's not. So we build our own houses, we take care of everything, and that division of labor is not that much. In that case, definitely, if it's their house and if they build, they should know how to do it. And that how to do it now, no more just engineers' knowledge. It should be their knowledge. And in that case, the ownership of knowledge is the one that we engineer need to transform that complex scientific knowledge to the simple person's common language. First requirement of that one, and be totally transparent. And my own experience working with nations, training them about the complex things and basic understanding of how earthquake works and how the construction system will resist that one. It works. It works. And it's one example. One of our trained missions from Bhaktapur. He was after the training, he was also involved in big construction. Construction of big buildings there in downtown, in Jammu there. And one day he found that the engineers was asking him to bend the bar like going this way and that way. Going, okay, bend bar this way. But he knows it's not that way. It has to go to build to the downward to the column. And then he registered to engineer. He just masons. he didn't have any knowledge and anything. No, I mean, he doesn't have any certificate or anything, but he has knowledge. And he so insisted that it went up to the designers, from the field engineer to designers. Yes, that's how it is, it should be. So that means those nations, they got the knowledge and they know why it is so. And always we need to give not just the information that you should do this, always it has to go with the why you should do this, why we should do this. And that becomes their knowledge. And once it becomes their knowledge, then we are free. We are free. So that's, I think, the ownership of knowledge, or let's say information, if not knowledge, that's a key component there, I think. Otherwise, we experts, we just go there and then just say, okay, do this one, and then the minute we left, and they don't follow it. Obviously, you were saying that. Right? And once they own the knowledge, and it's now their liability too, to apply that, right? I'll just stop here. Maybe that's my view, that's my own experience.
Tom Robertson, Fulbright. Thanks for a stimulating presentation. I wanted to ask a little more about training for engineers. Before I moved to Nepal, taught at a technical university in the US. Engineers, computer scientists, all sorts of technical folks. And to graduate, they needed to do a project on the relationship between technology and other social factors, which I thought was amazing, but it's rare even in the United States. So could you say a little more about the state of technical education here, or what more should the engineers be learning besides just the technical stuff? You've mentioned communication skills a number of times, but are there other things?
Thank you. Yes. The very first statement, my own statement, was that when I was first graduated, I had no knowledge of earthquake engineering. Forget about the communication skills too, right? That's where definitely I would say we are lacking. And it's so badly lacking. It's not just earthquake engineering knowledge. Last time when I came to Punjab campus there, and I asked campus chief and instructional engineering department to give me the latest copy of curricula, and we went together there to go through that one and see there is not still a curricula for masonry design, which is the prevalent construction types. And there are 2,000, 3,000 NRA engineers, fresh engineers, going to the field to solve the problem of masonry, and it's no masonry design course there. You can think of the scale of the problem there. And earthquake engineering, yes, my own experience and still experience of everyone, including just fresh graduate there, it's no earthquake engineering there in undergrad. So, and then there is a training that you mentioned, this training component there. Yes, there is a 3-day training, 5 days training, 7 days training for engineers. That's a big question there. Is that 3 days training is enough? Even for just engineering part, just for formula part. And where is that training to communicate with homeowners? Where is the educational training to communicate with the local government people or social champions there? No. Regretfully, yes, there's a big lapse there. And apart from there, that's another problem there, that is what I mentioned briefly there, the professional competency and keeping that, fostering that knowledge in the society. That's where the big problem is. If I know earthquake engineering knowledge, I don't want to share with the rest of people because I would lose that value, that being knowledgeable, just to be myself. That is the common, it's a really bad situation, but that's there. So in in the society where, at least there are, in other parts of the world where it's going well, there is a big movement, or actually the whole society has said that, okay, whole engineering community comes together, and I myself, I teach practicing engineers with UBC, practicing engineer, every 4 or 5 years they go back to classroom, and they learn what is the latest updated technologies. But then that all sort of those things, and helping out one to another and discussing the engineering problem, that is, I think, I want to be wrong, but that's where it is. The situation, yes, that's that.
I'm sure people have questions.
I was wondering a little bit, because you said about the importance of involving the people whose houses you're rebuilding and rebuilding those, but obviously that takes more time than just telling people how to build, and how you balance the kind of urgency of rebuilding with engaging the people whose houses they actually are.
Yes. Yeah, there should be, obviously there should be not just a balance, but then how to optimize the resources and time and resources. But then if it is really like the case of Dhanamaya, that she had one room now, she's going to build another house, that whatever we do is in vain, right? And she kept, most likely, and that is what my own field visit also says, that they keep their wood and cattles and other things in the earthquake resistant building, and then they are building their own building in a normal way. So that means that is the worst. That is the worse than just being late. And then the rust for the reconstruction, that's the media and ourselves, that we want to be in rust, that, one monsoon, next monsoon, we are all making a huge cry, but that has a really created pressure to those people who are running with scarce of materials and labor and everything, and and also from the NRA directives, okay, if you don't do this time, we will not get this money. And that is all creating this anomalies. And better, when we talk about the sustainability, let's take time if it is so. And we are poor, we have little resource, we cannot change that, then we have to work with that. So if that means we have to take time, let's take our time, then go with that, right? Maybe people may have another opinion, but my opinion is that.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sure. And I have a view, right? You ask questions, and I didn't have time to respond in the last conference. Yes.
No, it's just another personal anecdote. So I think, and this happens, something that happened before I got married. So my husband and family, they had retrofitted the house. So when the 2015 earthquake happened, so the house where I was living is considered to be earthquake safe. And so my husband and my mother-in-law would refuse to go inside the house. And then so I said, didn't you invest so much, retrofitting the house, so now why are you scared? So the response I got was, well, some engineer came and said that it is earthquake safe, so am I going to trust my family's life over his words, right? And so that was the experience then, but I'm just thinking now we have got these engineers going around the villages in Nepal, signing off what has been constructed. And I just feel like it must be quite burdensome on the engineers at a personal level that, if something happens, then, the burden is on them, right? Because they've signed off on it. So I just wanted to know what your thoughts are on that as a professional.
Yes. My very short answer would be, we need to work hard to get the trust from public. We engineers need to work hard to get the trust from public. But then when it comes to engineers signing off that one, but I would say that yes, there is problem and caveat and everything when we come up with the template designs and all those things. But then having those constraints and caveats, one thing is sure that those template designs, when they develop, whether it's working for functional or not, that's another issue. But then that is what they make sure that, okay, if you strictly follow this, okay, at least with our acceptable, I already, again I want to say that safety, risk, everything is relative, right? Related to our own standard. With our acceptable risk standard, yes, they are okay. And that is having that knowledge and everything, yes, we engineer bear that responsibility to be accountable, and that's why we sign off. And now, you know, it is ball is in your court to trust us or not. But then, yes, trust us. That's it, right? That is what we can say. Nothing more than that. Yes. But then, I really agree that there's a mistrust, and we need to work hard. And that's the message I think from you to engineers. We need to work hard to build that trust.
Questions? If not, then thank you so much, and have a good evening, everyone. So thank you so much. Small token from Social Science Baha.
Thank you.